they're looking at your LinkedIn, they're looking at your social media.
Oh God, I'm not perfect.
This is all just one big old high school. So if you want to be popular, I know how to do that.
It just doesn't happen overnight, and that's what people get confused about.
Together, we can actually make the magic that everyone's like, whoa, that was magic.
You're like right behind me. Like when I'm feeling a little bit flat,
what is this full plan going to look like?
Your energy and passion.
You think I do PR well, you should actually see me dance.
I'm Shona Grundy, founder and host of These Three Things, a podcast aimed at building a thriving and more inclusive startup ecosystem through sharing real lessons from people doing the hard work. We focus on the three strategically critical aspects of the startup journey: raising capital, finding product market fit, and expanding offshore. If you find this useful, please subscribe and recommend the podcast to at least 3 other people. We appreciate you lending us your ears and joining us for this episode. Today's guest is Nicole Rodrigues. Get ready to be inspired as we chat with the remarkable CEO of NRPR Group. Nicole is a true force in the world of communications and marketing, with a career spanning over 2 decades. Her expertise has earned her global recognition, and she's had the privilege of working with industry giants like Sony Pictures Entertainment, Hulu, and PlayStation. But Nicole's journey is more than just business acumen. She's a former NFL cheerleader for the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, bringing a unique blend of energy, discipline, and passion to her career and clients, which is most likely her special sauce. She holds an MBA from UCLA Anderson School of Management, where she graduated in the top 15% of her class with a focus on entrepreneurship. This deliberate choice reflects her commitment to equipping herself with the skills needed to guide her entrepreneurial tech clients through the challenges of starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. Join us as we delve into Nicole's impressive career and glean insights from her expertise in narrative strategy and marketing for those seeking product market fit and international expansion. Nicole, welcome to These Three Things.
Thank you for having me, Shona, and thank you for such a warm welcome. I love it.
I should actually let everybody in on how long you and I have known each other. Nicole's based in Los Angeles and has been for a while. I started working with Nicole 12 years ago, I believe. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's 12. Yep. I was going to say, I wonder if she remembers how long. 12 years. Mm-hmm.
Well, I distinctly keep seeing memories pop up on different social media with you, and I'm like, oh, we've been around together for a while. And we've actually worked across a number of different startups together. I originally was working with Warner Brothers, and I said, who do you use for your PR? And they were like, this amazing company, Bender Helper, and you came in like a rocket ship. I was like, I'd met someone else. I basically was trying to break into the US market, a New Zealand small technology company, and I was trying to figure out the USA. And I went in and I met someone else, and I didn't quite gel. And then you came in with your energy and passion and just these insights into things that I didn't understand. And we just hit it off. We worked across that startup. You then came in with me to help me with Soul Machines, our digital humans, as we were trying to get the celebrity angle side. And then you actually worked with me on an ag tech company, and we were expanding from New Zealand into the United States and into France and Europe as well. So long history with you.
Yes, I've loved every minute and every part of the journey.
It's been wonderful, and I've learned so much from you. So I was very excited to have you on board today. Because the things I've learned from you have grounded me in my career. So I'm excited to share with everyone.
That means a lot.
Let's get started on your background because I find it really interesting. Can you just give us a bit of a history as to how you got started in your career and where you came from?
Yeah, a little bit of a short synopsis. I actually got a degree in public relations. So I went to San Jose State for undergrad and graduated with a BS degree in public relations. And not a lot of schools offer PR as a full-on major, but I committed. And it felt inherently right to me, where strategy, writing, working with media, bringing in marketing, it all just worked together. And it was like all of my passions under one roof and one career. So I feel like PR specifically was very tailor-made for me. And I obviously started in Silicon Valley. That was San Jose. So I'm in the thick of it at that point. And I started within startups. My first sort of intern role was in a tech company that later got acquired by PeopleSoft, which was really amazing. And I did that for a couple of years and found that internally, I knew that I really appreciated tech. I loved being ahead of the game, ahead of friends that were like, what do you mean email? I don't have one of those yet. Like literally in the, early 2000s, 90s. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this passion to football, American football, because as I've learned, where you're passionate, where you actually have a real soul connection, a heart connection to something, you'll inherently do a good job because you're going to bring everything to it. And so I left tech for a little while to go do PR for the Oakland Raiders when they were in Oakland. And I went backwards, which most people would never do. I went from intern in tech to an account coordinator, backwards to intern in football, because they were like, well, just because you have PR experience in tech doesn't mean it's going to translate to football. And I was like, watch me, just watch me. And that was it. So I took a non-paid internship just to be able to show what I was made of and what I could do. And then as I got into it, I was like, well, what y'all don't know is I also can dance too. So I'm going to try out for the Raiderettes if that's okay. And my boss looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. Like, you do know that we don't have a decision over this. And just because you work in our PR department doesn't mean that you're going to get special privileges. There are hundreds of girls that fly out from around the world to get one of those spots. And I was like, you think I do PR well, you should actually see me dance. So that's what I did. I thought, you know what, if I'm going to put my passion somewhere, I'm going to put it completely. And I tried out for the Raiderettes and made it in the first try. And it was awesome. And so my bosses were like, whoa, okay, well, here's what we're going to do, because now we see you're committed to our organization completely. You're now fully in the family, not just doing our PR, but you are now going to be here 7 days a week. So let's see what we can do with this. And they actually put me on board to do more PR around the Raiderettes, because they didn't have work to pull the stories from the cheerleaders. And then that got me into training the coaches, the new football players, everyone. They started to trust me because they just saw that passion. So fast forward to that, because I missed tech. So I was in, with the Raiders for 3 full seasons, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time. But I knew that the future was going to be where all of those things were merging, where entertainment, things like football, were going to merge with tech. And I needed to stay ahead of the game, right? And so then I went to go work at a company called Moby TV, which is where I got my LA connections. Moby TV basically pioneered live streaming television on mobile devices to the United States. And it was incredible because we were doing deals with Disney, NBC, ESPN at that time, because they weren't Disney yet, right? It was separate. I was flying back and forth to LA, and I was meeting publicists here. And I don't mean to be mean or anything, but I was like, they're not even trying to learn tech. They're not trying. Literally, I remember a PR person from NBC who was like, I have no idea how to talk about your guys' technology, but I know that we're going to be on this mobile platform. Do you want to write our press release? Yes, I do. I will write it. So then here we are. Now I fast forward. I'm like, there's a gap in Los Angeles where it comes to understanding enough about tech and understanding enough about the other side, which is entertainment, bringing them together and making it approachable to the media pockets. And that's where I got my idea to eventually move to LA, and I did 13 years ago.
Potentially people don't understand, because when I met you 12 years ago, nobody was doing tech in LA. It was very new. Everyone considers it, tech is everywhere now, and certainly in LA, but it was all San Francisco, all there. And then I worked into this media PR agency who concentrated on films, and I just kind of went, well, at least they have the film side, I've got the tech side. And you walked with a real passion for technology, and that was very unusual at the time. I remember talking to you saying, why have you moved here? Like, this is, you're from San Francisco. Why would you move out? And you're like, I can see the opportunity. It was really great. I would actually have to comment as well that I think that passion that you bring out, and I think it's very important for people when they're actually entering into a new market and finding their professionals that they want to work with, that you need that cheerleader, right? I was like, oh my God, you're a cheerleader. It all really makes sense now, right? Yeah. But you come across people like, you're a CEO, you're an entrepreneur, you're full of fear and self-doubt, and things get wobbly, and you can feel really alone. And then you can come across these professionals and they'll go, they're just cynical or whatever, and they're just not really there. And that was something that I kind of picked up with you, as like, you believe, you're like right behind me, like when I'm feeling a little bit flat. So to find those people that actually believe in your mission is critical, right?
Absolutely.
When you kind of moved in, I met you, you're working with another firm, but then you went out on your own. So you now got your own PR firm, and you've got your marketing degree. So very much out on your own and with this team. Can you tell me what was the driving force behind you starting your own business?
Yeah. So I had always, in the back of my mind, even going through college, and I'll be completely transparent, I had an incredible PR 101 professor. I ended up taking a couple of her courses, and I recognized that she was explaining the career trajectory of a PR person. And I was doing a little bit of the math in the back of my head, and I was like, okay, so in my 20s, I'm doing this, and I'm probably going to be up here. And then in my 30s, sure, I can get up to, if I'm working hard, vice president or president, whatever. And then after that, you start to be expensive. And you also start to be one of those people that, people are going to look at and be like, well, they're in their 50s. Do they still know how to relate to the market? Ageism is a real thing in a lot of people's minds, and especially here in the US. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if I don't own my own company by the time I'm 40 or whatever, like, I could very well be in a very threatening position. No matter how good I am, I'm expensive. And if it doesn't stack up, they're going to hire someone younger than me who is willing to take less, even if they have less experience and might not be as good. So it was actually a little bit of I was 19 years old having a freak out moment over like, what is this full plan going to look like? So I knew eventually it had to happen, but I also knew that I didn't want to do it until I felt that at every level in my profession that I had mastered it. I wasn't going to try to take shortcuts. I wasn't going to try to just jump, right? I wanted to make sure that I mastered it because I knew how important teaching down was going to be, right? How do I really teach an account coordinator if I'm not like, I remember what it was like to be you? It's almost like, a coach where it's like, I'm going to coach this football team and I'm going to be a quarterback coach because I was a quarterback and I was in the NFL, or I did do that. So I looked at that as being very important. There was a point in time where I was talking to, Dean, who was one of the owners of BHI and who I looked up to as like a father figure. He'd been in our industry for so long and he just really believed in me. And we were able to have a lot of heart-to-hearts in those late nights when I was still in the office, like 8, 9 p.m., just blah. And I remember a distinct conversation when he actually came in and hinted to me as to when he decided it was time for him to go out on his own. And I'm looking at him like, I think I'm reading between the lines and you're telling me I'm ready. Because there was a point in time where it was like, okay, you're vice president of digital entertainment. Like this is your department. You're running this department. You have all of these people under you. What do you really want? Is it here in this firm where you're going to be president of your division? How much more could you get? Also, he knew some of the other personalities in the company and where they stood and where that might not be comfortable for me. And he recognized I was ready to grow. And so as I was like over the Christmas break, I think a little bit, I just remember sitting with myself and almost feeling sick to my stomach. Like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't think that I am, but maybe I am, and yeah. And it just, I went to him. I actually gave him my 3 weeks notice, and then you know what happened after that. And here I am. And as scared as I was, he was right. And I was more ready than I even thought I was.
And I think that's a great lesson for people, because I'm very certain we've got people who are listening to our show who are really like entrepreneurial curious, if that's a term. They're thinking, do I want to work, for others, or do I want to go out on my own? And when do I know the time is ready? I mean, I certainly agree with you that to go out on your own before you've worked for other people, before you've found your mentors, before you've learned from people is a bad idea, right? There's just so many 100%. Lessons. Yeah, finding that time to find the leap and actually having a plan. So you knew, you were like, I'm this person, I'm this type of person. So you had the plan, you just weren't sure when, and that's okay.
So there were certain things that I needed to know how to do, right? How to organize the team, find the right people so that, okay, we have this. And I had basically worked to strengthen that. And I knew, again, I know football. So it's like, how do I set up my team? Who's my quarterback on this specific account? Who's my punter? Who's this? Who's that? Okay, good. So we have systems in place. This feels good. The results are coming, because that was the big thing. Are we actually getting the results? Because if I'm going to form a company, I need to know that I can actually do this for people. And then, do I understand the money side of things? I think people get so wrapped up in, I have this vision and I can create this thing and I can do the stuff. Your backbone is your legal and finance team. And if you don't understand how to organize them and that, you could be the best PR person in the world. If you don't know how to look at a P&L, if you don't know how to balance your income versus what you're hiring against, your whole dream can collapse. And I think that was a big thing for me, where I was like, okay, I need to pay attention when I'm sitting and I'm talking to Dean and we're talking about budget and how and why this translates into this and how we can do that, so that I could have the right structure in, if I have clients, what's a really great fair amount. I was all about that too. I was like, because I saw where some agencies were like, well, this is our gap. And I'm like, no, like that. Now that doesn't feel right to me. I mean, so I was like, so how do I do it where everybody wins? Employees get paid well. The company makes money, because we obviously have to stay alive. And that was where I was like, once I felt really comfortable about the money side of things, I was like, oh yeah, I can be an entrepreneur now. So, and I think that's something that a lot of people miss. And they misstep, and all of a sudden they're in legal poop and finance poop because they didn't plan on that side for their dream. So yeah.
100%, that financial intelligence, right? And yes. I think a lot of people are just like, that's not me. I'm brilliant. I was definitely one of those people.
Sure.
I was like,
sure,
I'm creative. I'm very strong with creative. I'm very strong with clients. I can sell. And I'm very creative. I'll just get an accountant, right? Like, of course you need an accountant.
And then you're like,
but you've got to have control.
Speaking the language. Yeah.
Yeah.
And be able to basically tell them, okay, we need to do this. How are we going to do this? Take their advice on planning, but at the same time, also knowing if these are our projections, how do we do this in a way that's smart? And, I'll admit, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning that were very expensive mistakes, but I learned from them very, very quickly. But it was, always at that beginning, I'm like, I need to learn this. That's also why I went to go get my MBA. I was like, I went to school for marketing, communications, and journalism for gosh sakes. I'm going to get my MBA so they can drill, show me how this P&L works, show me accounting, show me all of these things that usually would just in my brain, and help me understand it, so that I can speak the right language and just, be better on that side. Oh, but that's why when people are like, well, I just graduated from college, I'm going to just go start my own company. And I'm like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah. I just want to pause here for a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Callahan Innovation. Aotearoa New Zealand's innovation agency. This agency empowers innovators, helping you transform your world-bettering ideas into commercially successful ventures. What you may or may not know is that Callaghan have a fantastic suite of products called Upskill. These products will help you identify the innovation, R&D, and commercialization skills you need to amplify and elevate your ideas, and then train you to put them into practice. So go check it out by heading over to their website, callahaninnovation.govt.nz/upskill. One of our segments of the show is about raising capital. Have you done this or worked alongside any of your clients in this field? And can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like from your side?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm glad that you asked, because most people don't understand what a solid role a good PR person can have on your team if you're out raising capital. So I've been very fortunate that I've had so many founding companies, CEOs trust strategy around that, right? Because part of raising capital is, how do you look to the outside world? It's almost like building a case, right? At the end of the day, it's people want to go and put their money and hedge their bets on things that look like there might be a good outcome here. And a lot of that is the story that you tell about why you even exist, where you're going, who is the team, because as you know, a lot of the times, especially in early days fundraising, when you're raising that seed round or even who's the jockey on the horse? We understand the company is the horse and this looks great, but is that jockey ready? Like, can they actually lead this? So that's where a lot of what work I've done in thought leadership with executives, really helping executives even understand how to translate their story better. The worst thing is you walk into a pitch meeting to pitch what your company is, and the investors are like, I still don't know what you do, and that's very complicated, and the answer is no. And you could have had a brilliant idea. So having someone who understands how to pull from an executive's mind, help them storytell in a succinct, really effective way, and also encourage them to, like, you can do this. I know maybe you might be an introvert, but today you're putting on another hat. I want you to still be yourself, but I need to be yourself at a different energy level. So if that takes a little bit more coffee or whatever, but if you are not enthusiastic about what it is you're trying to get people to invest in, like, you need to work on that. So I have definitely played a role, and I've enjoyed it. You know, when CEOs come to me and be like, we got it, let's announce our 50 million, like, knowing I'm like, heck yeah, we did it. Like, so it feels so good knowing that, okay, well then that means that we're all leveling up, because if I'm part of that, then we're all doing this together. And I think that's why we've also been able to retain so many clients who are like, man, if it wasn't for the stories told in the outside to the media, right? During due diligence, when you're fundraising, media are out. They're Googling you, they're looking at your LinkedIn, they're looking at your social media, they're investigating, right? The people and the company, what are they saying? So there's so much that I don't think that people really understand in terms of getting Cinderella ready for the ball. But it's not just about fundraising and, you know, getting past friends and family. When you want to get past friends and family and get real money in, you got to look the part and you got to be ready. That's one of the really, I think one of the highlights of my career, being able to be a part of teams that are out fundraising and helping them do that. It's awesome.
I think that's exactly where the disconnect is, right? You know, you're in technology, you've built this great thing, you're like, this is mind-blowing, I'm doing something new and I know we're smashing it. But then they get confused on the other side. They'll walk into a room, they'll pitch it. Either at the time your customer is like your end user, or your customer is the investor, like at different times of your life cycle, they're playing different, your customer is an investor or a potential investor. And you're trying to tell them how fantastic you are, but you can't nail the messaging, you know, that people walk out. I mean, I met you 12 years ago, and that's kind of where I was at in my phase. I was trying to tell my story. I was so excited. It had never existed in the world before. And you gave me very clear advice, and you kind of, and I'll never forget it. It was like, Shona, if you tell people 20 things about what you do, the human brain only has capacity to remember 3. And she's holding up her 3 fingers. And I was just like, okay. And she said, so by all means, tell them 20 things, but they choose then the 3 that they'll remember.
Yeah.
That's not under your control. So what do you want? Do you want them to remember the 3 most important things, or have a decision about what they want to remember you as? And I was like, okay, well, I want them to know these 3 things. And you said, right, now we only tell them these 3 things, not 20, 3. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah. And that's where the beauty of planting seeds outside, right? If you tell them the most important 3 things, and you know that those 3 things are that hook, it's the bait that gets them really like, you know what, this hits my mind, this hits my heart, this hits a sweet spot, something that is meaningful for them because they are the audience. They have to be convinced, and you want to do it in a real and right way. I've always said that too. Integrity is big. So you want to use honesty, but you also want to know psychologically people make decisions based on themselves and based on their experiences. So then if you're planting seeds elsewhere, maybe that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th thing, there could be a story that really highlights that piece. And when they're doing their due diligence, talking to you, and then they're seeing those 3 things throughout media, and then all of a sudden they also see this, they're going to come in at a pace, and they're going to read, listen, and learn at a pace that feels good for them psychologically. And then from there, they can retain. And that is just the whole thing. I think that people just forget we are all human. We have to talk to people the way humans can digest.
Exactly. And that actually probably leads right into our next topic of conversation, which is product market fit. Can you give me your thoughts around, we've built this thing. How do I know, or how do I ensure that what we've built actually works for that person? Is there work that you do around that?
Absolutely. So, and here's where I think that, conceptually, a lot of the times an entrepreneur will start with a business idea or concept based on personal experience, right? There's usually an aha moment. My grandfather was suffering from XYZ, and it impacted my family in this way. And here's where I found that I could do this. And there's a lot of I, or we within a very small group. And then all of a sudden we're all drinking from the same cup of Kool-Aid, and we're all feeling like this is something the world needs, and you shut the world out. You shut the world out. And what I always tell, especially in those early stage, like, you need to go outside of your bubble and do your homework, do your personal due diligence. You are a 45-year-old male. This is your demographic, whatever. You want to sell to the people who are going to be making the decisions, right? So in your family, is that a female? Great. Well, why don't you go and talk to 100? You and your team sit and talk to 100 women and pick their brain, ask them these questions, because you are not that demographic. I've let clients or potential clients go because I've asked, so what sort of primary research did you do when it comes to actually talking to the people in these demographics, especially dog owners? There was one, I've never tested this on dogs, but this is a dog product and I think that people want it. And I'm like, first of all, you don't know if this is even safe for dogs because you've never tested on dogs. Have you talked to dog owners about this? Well, not really, but the technology works. And I was like, sir, you couldn't pay me millions of dollars to represent this company. And maybe there will be a PR firm who blindly will take this because sure, it's a good idea. You are waiting for, you're a walking, talking crisis comm situation. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm like, you want to create a product specific thing. I won't even name it, but for dogs and dog owners, and you can't confirm how safe it is for them, I won't take it. So you've got to make sure that while you're all excited about your brand new idea, you've got to talk to people that you want to sell to, because they are going to give you the keys. They're going to give you the keys into how to do it and how to build the message to get them. They're going to give you the answers to the test. You just have to take the time to study. Like, that's it. So that's definitely what I recommend to clients, and I'll pick their brain on just how much they've done so that we make sure that we're nailing messages to their audience.
That's just a really strong common theme that's coming out with my guests. There's like, stop being in your bubble. I know it's a great idea, but please go and actually talk to 100 people, 100 potential customers, your customers. Don't think you know it all, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and that could be even the nice thing too, Shona, and the reason why I say taking the time to do this, if you can put that kind of primary research, because most people are great at secondary research. Well, we pulled this from Pew, we pulled this from this, we pulled this from that. Great, because you could just and slap it in. So people are fine with secondary. Primary, you can walk into a pitch and say, I've actually personally, out of my team, we talked to 100, I talked to 50 of those people myself. This is the feedback and why it becomes part of the why we've built this way. And that helps you tell your why story that much stronger with confidence, because you feel, even you, that'll actually, like, yo, I'm doing the right thing because I've talked to the people who need this or need me, and we're going for it because they validated it.
I'd like to pick up on that why comment that you just made. I often meet entrepreneurs and founders who are very confident in explaining to me what they've built. They'll say it's connected like this, it works like this, and they're very clear on it. And I know I'll walk away going, I don't get it. And they'll go, what do you don't get? And they'll explain again how it works. Can you explain to me, because you are from marketing and PR, why is the why important?
Okay, I love this question. So the why is important because no matter what your technology is, or no matter what your product is, what you're selling, you are selling to human beings who have to make decisions, whether it is to use it or to buy it. We connect in very specific ways, right? Based on need, most of the time. Sometimes just based on, want, whether maybe it's something social that you're creating and I really just want an outlet or whatever. If you are not clear on the why, you can't connect to the passion point. You can't connect as to why that person needs it. So if you can't connect to your own why are we building this? And money should not be your why. Well, because this is going to make so much money. Well, can you tell your customer that? You can't tell them that. The why is, we are trying to solve world hunger. That's a little bit too much of a why, but it needs to connect to the humans that need to make the decision on whether or not they're going to use your service or use your technology or whatever. And if that's not clear, it's also not going to be a good driving force for who you bring into the company. They need to connect to the why. They need to feel like they're joining something that's bigger than them. Do they also agree with the why, or are they just collecting a paycheck, right? So I think that if you can be really clear on the different why I started this type of thing, it's much easier to explain that than, well, this is what it is. The what is the end result. The what you created is because of a why. So you have to really be clear on that.
And I like that comment about it helps those people that you're bringing into the company. So not only is it your staff who have to communicate the passion, but it's also the investors. They're coming into your business too, right? And I know for a fact that when you're an investor and you've made all your money, you're not out to just make more money because it's just more money, right? You're out for a reason. You have a higher purpose than just money now, because it's well, I've made loads of money. Now, where am I going to put that money?
Yeah, and oftentimes too, a lot of the times the investors want to feel like I was part of this movement. And I know I'm not in the company, I'm not the CEO, but I helped fuel that tank that went and helped XYZ happen, right? Because people come up with business ideas all the time. You have to connect to humanity no matter what, because it's humans who are going to power the company financially, physically, all of that. And that has to be a big part of it, you know. It also will help when you're trying to prioritize too, because you meet a lot of visionaries, and, you know, you probably have come across where it's like, oh, I have all these ideas. And then it's like, you have 75 things, not one is getting done because there's just too much and it just feels fun and creative and pew, 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 pew. Let's get back to our why, that we're creating this, and make sure that we're completing cycles. We're completing products. We're completing these things, because that is going to lay the foundation brick by brick, like building a house. You know, the universe gives us all of our answers. You know, it's kind of like, just like a tree, you got to water it. We as building companies have to follow the same, it really is the same sort of system, right?
Exactly. Some people who aren't from that communication and messaging type of framework, they're often more technical, because a founder someone has to build the thing so that we can test it, right? So I think there's this perception that, oh, your mission and your values is like this fluffy stuff, and okay, I have to do it. But when I've seen it done well, you're nailing your investment.
Magic.
You're getting your customers, your staff understand how to build a roadmap and get it done, right?
Yes.
Instead of all these things that they're building, and then the customer's confused, like, so what are you building? And why did you build that feature? Because that's kind of left field. And people go, because it's cool. It's like, no, I'm quite focused on my why and what we're trying to achieve for the world.
And the other thing too, and I like to tell people this again, just very simple, clear human. Clarity concretes a creation, right? If you are clear on what it is you're creating and why, you've got concrete. You can't build a house on sand or water. It's not strong, right? You have got to be very clear in direction, in how, why, and that's going to basically concrete the process for actually creating something that is real. And that's why I think there's a lot of investment dollars that just get flushed down the toilet, because it's like people who, well, yeah, they sold me on the dream and blah, blah, blah. But it was like, before you wrote them that check, were you absolutely clear on how they were going to get there? That's the thing. And I think that was also a big, in our economy, where you found a lot of investors were like, hold on a second, we're going to wait. Because then burning venture capital on, oh, well, there's another idea, wasn't acceptable in that point in time, right? And of course, it's not like it's all going to be fixed, but I try to tell people, even investors, make sure you are clear from that CEO, that CEO who's going to be jockeying the horse is clear on their why, how, what. And then that way they can translate it to their team, and their team can execute. That's how you create things that become real. And then someone can come in and purchase it, or customers will buy and you're making your money, but it's so, so important, but undervalued, right? Like, I'm not an engineer. I don't build these things, but I work with a lot of engineers who are like, oh, it's fine. I can just build it. We'll create a company. And I'm looking at them like, you don't know how to translate what you're doing. You're going to have a real hard time.
You're coming at it from a point of view of having worked with literally hundreds of founders and that aged you for a second.
I was like, hold on. Yep, you are right. I have.
And so it's very clear to see the patterns, right? It's like, okay, these ones who can, they've been able to articulate their why. They are very clear on their plan to get there. They've researched their customers. You're like, tick, 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 tick. These guys are winners. Over here, your chaos, right? And that's what that's what I'm picking up that you're telling me. You're like, I'm very clear on the winners. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And why they win.
Again, because it's, also for my company, where I put my energy and my time is important, because if I'm not betting on the right horse, right, and where we're putting our energy and time, then my people, not only are going to be brought into some of that chaos, but my people are going to suffer, because then it's like, well, that company didn't work. And look, there are certain times where economies happen, bad economies happen, but that in a certain amount of time, you are working with like good people who have, they're organized. It brings a certain level of peace to your people. And that's something that for me, that's part of my values, right? Thinking about NRPR, what is it that I value? I value the people. I value the outcome. Well, because I value those two things, and part of my why for creating NRPR was making sure that both the internal and our clients really benefited from strong relationships, well, then that's why I've kept my agency at a certain size. That's why I've turned down clients, right? That's why I've kept certain clients and why I've worked with clients over and over again, because I have to think about outcome and what piece I'm bringing to my client, my team, because they're going to be like, we're on a launch. And that launch, no matter what, no matter how good, it's just always one of those things, right? So that's why it's so important to, you start to learn those certain personality types that you're like, you're going to be chasing your tail forever. This isn't going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. On the next segment of the show, we talk about going offshore. And whilst listeners on the show are from various countries, there's a primary audience here that are from New Zealand and Australia. And so for us, I kind of feel there's some that have a very clear understanding of what marketing and PR is and why it's important, but I'd say it's not as sophisticated and as strong as the US. Now, we're wanting to take our companies offshore into the United States, or usually it's the United States or up into the UK, and we're now competing with these other companies up there that get it and they know it. From your perspective, I mean, you'll absolutely work with New Zealand companies breaking it because you work with me and others.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, when do they engage? How do they engage? Why do they engage? What's your advice to entrepreneurs?
The first and most important thing in terms of like bringing a service or a product into, a market is readiness. You're absolutely ready. That thing is ready, or you're 90 days out from that being available to people in the US, right? It doesn't make sense to sprinkle, fairy dust and press and marketing around the US when no one can take action. It's like, okay, well, here, cool, this link, find out more about us in this link. And then people are like, well, I can only use your service if I'm in Australia. Well, that doesn't help me. So, perfect example, I have a client right now who they started in the Netherlands, right? And I've known them since like the beginning of them starting their company. And we had been in discussions about like, when is the right time? And I was like, listen, you have the ability to strengthen your story by doing things so well in the Netherlands that once you are ready, your technology is ready, your system is ready to be in the US, we are going to use that track record and we're going to use it as a proof point that this is going to work in the US and this is why people should be paying attention. So we didn't engage for a good, 6 to 9 months at least, because I was like, don't waste your money. You don't need to plant seeds here if people can't take action. You need to give all your love, time, passion to making it work over where you're at. And then as soon as they were like, we're ready to launch in the US, the tech is ready, man, have we been crushing it in the Netherlands. The launch, Like it went that much smoother because people could take action immediately when they started getting press and started putting things on LinkedIn and look at what we're doing in the US. Click, 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 click. Because when you get that interest, it's almost like casting a net that you want to capture the fish in. If you're just casting a net, but you can't do anything, you can't close it, they're going to swim away and you've lost that opportunity and you've wasted money. So it's the same thing. Anyone in Australia or New Zealand, are you 60 to 90 days out to, making this thing real in the US? Well, great. Then you need a strategic partner that can help make sure that your storylines map to the US minded consumer and whoever, there, so that you have that planning, you have the storylines, and then you just crush it. So that's usually, how real is it is the very first question, that I'll ask anyone.
I know there's confusion as to actually how you get certain things that you see other companies getting in the market, their attention, they're getting press, they got invited onto the stage at the conference that you're at as a keynote speaker. My technology is better than them. Why did they get asked to be on stage? Or my technology is better than that. How did they win an award? My technology is better than that. Can you dispel some myths around how you get attention? Like, where does it come from?
Okay. This is like the gajillion-dollar question. So going back to human psychology, right? I always explain to people, you're a transfer student into a new high school and nobody knows you. You could be the biggest mathlete at the school, the biggest brainiac. You just came from this. No one knows that. So you could very well be the best. No one knows that. How do you get people to know that? You have to start somewhere. Join the math club. Make sure that pocket of people knows you and knows you well. And then they're going to start raising your profile, right? Then you join a competition. So it's the same thing as a company. First, you got to get clear on your story, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. No one knows you. You're in a forest alone, and you could be the very best thing ever, but no one at that party is going to be convinced until you start proving it. So you have to start where the most people are going to talk to you or talk about you, and then you just go from there. So you create a couple of stories, and that's why people are like, how come you can't get me in the Wall Street Journal? And I always tell them, well, I can. But I also know that Wall Street Journal isn't going to talk to you unless these 5 or 6 other people do, and that I bring that up to them. And, it's kind of like, how do I get to the Wizard of Oz? Well, you follow this yellow brick road and you be patient. And that's how you get there. And a lot of the people are looking for the shortcut, and they don't want to commit to the journey of actually solidifying who you are in the market and why you're important. So I tell people, depending on who your partners or first customers are, they could fast forward you straight up to popularity. If TikTok or Amazon or whatever is your number one partner and they're allowing you to say that, great. You have an anchor that's going to bring you into the popularity contest. So we've got to use what we've got, and you've got to be patient with where and how that's going to take you. And every journey is different based on backgrounds of your executives, what they've done, what partners you have, who your investors are. If you have great investors who believe in you, that's a fast forward into certain stories and certain things. And then your company actually has to prove it. And you've got to grow. And you've got to apply for the awards that put the timeline together that say, we're the fastest growing. We went from 10 employees to 250, and here's the proof. Okay, great. You have to create those proof points, or people aren't just going to believe you. They're not just going to take your word. And that's where strategists, people like me, come in. I look at all the tools I'm working with, and I'm like, here's where you just got to follow this here. And if you basically listen to me, I promise you I'll get you there. And those are the best CEOs to work with, because once they believe and we're all working together, you go from not being known at all to, I just raised $120 million because now we're winning awards, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing that. And now people are asking me to speak on stage.
Woo! So that's the whole wraparound journey, isn't it? It all comes down to the strategy and not this like, I've got some magic beans, it just doesn't happen overnight. And that's what people get confused about time and time again, right? Someone shows up on the world stage and they're like, that was magic. They just arrived. And it's like, most likely they had a strategy, and most likely they started a year and a half ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that is like my favorite thing, where they're literally, I've let go of clients or not taken certain projects that are like, listen, we just need a Hail Mary. Can you get me TechCrunch?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, okay, so then how much have you raised? Well, we're bootstrapping, but first of all, that's one of the first questions TechCrunch is going to ask. Who your investors are and how much. You want to know why? Because they want to know you're not going to die next month after they do a story about you. And you can't be looking for one Hail Mary, because guess what? People are going to be like, wow, you were in TechCrunch this week. And then the next week, they're going to be like, squirrel. Like, oh, look at what that company is doing. Like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't, I got one TechCrunch and everybody knows me forever. No, like that is not real. So it's one of those things where if you're in for the full strategy, meaning we're going to build your CEO as a great thought leader, we're going to build your technology as being XYZ in this market, we're going to do this and you're going to have a presence at these events, you are going to crush the popularity contest. Like that's and I tell people, I'm like, listen, I was homecoming queen at my high school. I was head cheerleader. I was all of those things. You know why? Because I was doing my own PR the whole freaking time. So if you want to be popular, I know how to do that in this world, right? And so that's why I tell people, I'm like, now I'm just getting paid to do what I was doing at like 16 years old, right? So it's like, that's psychology. Humans work so similarly and people don't realize it. I'm like, this is all just one big old high school. I can help you win the popularity contest.
That's a brilliant analogy because it all runs on people, right?
It does.
And psychology, humans and psychology. Yeah. Hey, Nicole, this has been a phenomenal chat. There are so many lessons in there, and I really appreciate you taking the time. You are a star. You have given me tools and knowledge that have turned me into what I am today. Like, a lot of what I bring to the table has come from our long conversations on the road, where you're like, Shona, it's XYZ, now go in there and crush it. And I'm like, okay. And I listened, right? And I think that's important.
Yes. You are like, oh my God, that's what I love. There was no ever ego about anything. It was like, all right, coach, put me in the game. And it was like, star player, Shona, you got this. You're going to win the game. It's going to be great. Let's take the championship home. And you did. And that's why I think I've always loved working with you, because you were just like, what do we need to do to win? And let's just do this. And I adore you for that. And that's what makes you a great leader too.
Thank you. But I mean, it's taking it back to like, you're going to hire these professionals, and you should, to build you into a superstar. Put your ego aside with these people that you pull in close, because I did that with you. Like, it was like, okay, Nicole, who am I meeting? What's the messaging? You'll go, these 3 things, bang, 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 bang. And you'll just be in my ear as I'm walking in the room, and I'd sit down and I like nailed that messaging. And then I walk out, and the very first thing you would do is like, right, now we debrief, and I'm going to tell you everything you didn't do right. And instead of me going, oh God, I'm not perfect, I just went, I'm going to get better at this. Yes. And you got me Forbes, NBC, TechCrunch, Mashable, the Los Angeles, like, it was crazy. But it was a plan, and I just want people to understand that that's like your professionals that you bring in around you, they're key to your success. Just because you watch these CEOs out there, and they're surrounded by people like you. So, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, and like, look, Steve Jobs didn't become Steve Jobs overnight. He had a really great press person next to him. Like, you even see the Steve Jobs movies. I'm like, that was his PR person. Look at how closely, and he looked at her also as a strategist, and he had his own marketing mind. But like, to me, I watch that, and I'm just kind of like, if people will trust And not all PR people are created equal. Believe me, I've met some scoundrels or some people who just aren't as good, but people who I love this profession and I love it so much that I want to be taken seriously. So working hand in hand with leaders who will understand that part of that job is to help, it helps take that company to the levels that it wants to go, and not just like, oh, let's just tell PR at the last minute, blah, blah, blah. If you really, really want to get to that next level, your sort of quarterback can and should be your PR person. And that's why I just love this and love working with people like you, because it's like together we can actually make the magic that everyone's like, whoa, that was magic. Well, yeah, we made that happen together, but it was also very well thought out.
I'm Hussein Al-Bedri, producer of These Three Things. This part of the podcast is called The Three Learned Things. Shona and I wanted to briefly reflect on the three key insights we got from today's episode, which is brought to you in association with Callahan Innovations' Upskill products. These products are designed to help startups uncover and acquire the skills they need to succeed. Wow, Nicole's passion was really amazing. I found that very inspirational. So many rich messages in that conversation. The first thing that really got me thinking right off the bat when she was talking about her story was this whole notion of readiness. And I really went and thought about, okay, well, how do people feel they're ready? How do entrepreneurs feel they're ready? When do they take that step of entrepreneurship? And I say that as someone who hasn't done the entrepreneurship journey, and I asked myself the same question. And, she had some clear answers there around the fact that results and money do matter, and the fact that, sometimes you got to surround yourselves with the right mentors and people who can tell you if you are ready or you're not.
Yes, to become an entrepreneur, right? For me, I think I was 31 and it was the scariest thing I've ever done. But when I listened to what she has just said about how do you know you're ready to take the leap, I had kind of done those internship trainings by working with mentors and great people. And so when I took the leap, I probably wasn't completely ready and I had so many more lessons to learn, but it just really resonated with me, and it's a scary step to take. And I was with her and knew her when she took that step. But she is just honestly just flowing, and it's been wonderful to watch her journey.
So what did you get out of it?
So for me, it was just this overall wraparound about the concept of PR, messaging and marketing. And when we listened to what she was saying throughout each segment, capital raising, achieving product market fit, and even going offshore, using the craft of public relations and messaging is so deeply important, and I feel like it often gets missed or misunderstood. And so it's not about these really successful companies who are getting all the press, all the awards, all the keynote speaking spots. They didn't just drop a press release randomly on a Tuesday once every 6 months, right? They worked with these professionals and they had deep strategies. And there is this yellow brick road concept that she talked about that, yes, I can get you into the Wall Street Journal, but you actually need to put in the groundwork first. And I know that groundwork and I will teach it to you. I will hold your hand because I'm the professional. And so I really would encourage companies that if you one day see yourself taking more than just your friends and family money and you want to go offshore, how are you really going to be successful in raising a $50 million check? That's huge money, and they won't give it out to you randomly if you don't have a great story, a great reputation, and have proven yourself to the world. So that was my big takeaway from the whole conversation.
One of the big things, and there was a lot in that PR, the role of PR and the world of SaaS in general and other companies. The big thing for me that stood out was this concept of the jockey on the horse. She said a lot of the times a big aspect of her job is actually equipping the leaders and the entrepreneurs and the founders with the right story, getting them to translate their story really well, connected to their company, so their personal background story. you get a lot of times where you get very awkward personalities with entrepreneurs, and I think equipping them with those sound bites, their ability to tell their story and connect it to their business and be able to promote thought leadership on matters and put perspectives forward that, move a conversation forward, I think is really important as well.
Yes, that jockey on a horse concept, you're completely right. PR agencies or professionals, they're right next to the founder and the CEO. They're not part of a team off to the side. She would literally follow me around to every meeting and should say, Shona, we're meeting this person. This is what they care about. You need to deliver these messages, and she'd just be in my ear as I walk in, and then she'd listen to the whole conversation, and I'd walk out, and she was the person who gave me clear, honest feedback. This was great. That messaging was very clear, but you need to work on X, Y, and Z. And actually, you didn't get to this point faster. And instead of being defensive and going, oh, don't tell me what to do, I can't tell you how valuable that was. She just grew and grew and grew me in my messaging style so that I understood what was needed to get my story across clearer. So if you are that entrepreneur and CEO who is struggling to get your message across and you're saying, people just don't understand how brilliant this idea is, I just highly encourage you to get some professionals around you to help grow that skill set in yourself.
I guess the last point that I got out of that conversation was around the readiness aspect of your product. So while PR is extremely important and how you tell your story is really important, when we asked about how do you land in a market like the US, she said, well, you've got to have your PR story, but you've also got to have a product that is ready. It's almost market ready or it is ready because people need to be able to take action, and otherwise you're really wasting your time. And I'm actually, it resonates really well with me because I'm seeing startups who are focusing a lot more on their PR story and trying to test their PR, but they haven't actually got their product sorted. And so there is a real balance for me to strike in getting both of these things humming at the same time.
Can you do me a favor? If you like this episode, can you hit the subscribe button? It really makes a huge difference to us, and it means that we can continue to evolve, grow, and bring more insights from a larger variety of guests. Thank you for listening to These Three Things. Our podcast is fueled by our passion and admiration for startups and the courageous people who create them. A huge thanks to our wonderful listeners and guests, my producer Hussein Al-Badri, our sound and visual crew, Elisa Grishkova and Carl Butler, and our sponsor, Callahan Innovation, who are just as committed and passionate about the ecosystem as we are. Tune in next week for another episode of These Three Things.